Morning.
Morning, sir. I love the drapes.
Thank you. Marc, you're on mute.
How's home life?
It's good, Joe. How have you been, brother?
I'm sweating a lot. There we go.
There we go, Marc.
Hey, we got it. Gary, all set?
All set.
Yeah, cool. Thanks for doing this.
Of course.
So I assume everybody's out there in the audio world. It's tough for us to see you all, which is too bad. But if you guys are all set, we'll get cracking. Joe, you all set?
All ready to go.
Okay, great. Super. So listen, wherever you are in the world, we're super happy to welcome you to the kind of 1880 webinar tonight with these two phenomenal guests. We call them Supermen. The reason I call them Supermen is I think these guys exist. They have a passion for empowering people to challenge themselves and to take you to places where you've never kind of been before in your life. You get to learn something about yourself on that journey, and you get to go a lot deeper. And whether you're going down a path with Joe Sena or you're going down a path with Gary V, you're bound to find something that you've never seen before about yourself. Guys, I'd love to ask you just to do a quick introduction of yourselves. Tell us where you are in the world, tell us how you're doing, and tell us what you're up to. Gary, why don't we start with you?
I'm in New Jersey, how to get out of the New York City kind of epicenter. So in the woods of New Jersey, the part that looks more like Iowa than it does the New Jersey that most people think of when they think of it. Doing really well. Family's well. Everyone's healthy, thank God. I've been navigating, a lot of treacherous waters for VaynerMedia, given the fact that a lot of our clients are facing fiscal pressures and liquidity events or cash flow issues. So just kind of doing the wartime general thing on the entrepreneurial front. And then obviously the Gary V part of my life has gone to a very interesting challenge with public speaking going to zero. And then if that wasn't enough, decided to get behind this all-in challenge, which has become a major fundraising event here. We've raised $25+ million in 2 weeks to feed the hungry. So I've been keeping myself busy, really enjoying this, right? I always love when I get to see Joe, but I get to see him like once every 4 years. But now I'm getting to see the Joes of the world, meaning solid acquaintances, friends, business contemporaries, far more often, far more focused, scaling, fully taking advantage of the cloud-based, video conference-based technology ecosystem, and genuinely optimistic and excited about the opportunities that exist coming out of this, because consumer behavior and human behavior has definitely been put in a place where there will be some shifts, and I tend to like new territories. So practical optimism is kind of what I've been thinking a lot about. So a lot of practicality and a lot of optimism. I'm glad to be here this morning. Thanks for having me.
Okay, that's great. Thanks a lot. Gary, we're going to get into the all-in challenge and a couple of those other things that you mentioned. But let me ask you quickly, has Joe gotten you to do a Spartan Race yet?
No, he's been working on it, but yeah. I've been ducking him. I've been, hiding in the shadows. But the good news is I'm in far, far, far better shape than I was when I first met Joe, and really have gotten my physical life together. So I think I can definitely be suckered in. I think I might be willing to make a public commitment during this special.
Okay, I wouldn't want to be. I wouldn't want to have Joe chasing me to get anything done.
No, me neither.
Joe, buddy, it's so good to have you here. It feels like you're back in Singapore. Can you tell everybody out there where you are, what you're up to, very quickly?
Yeah. So we're on the farm in Vermont. Everybody thought I was a crazy person, I think, including Gary. When we got this place, 20 years ago. It's in the middle of nowhere, and it was hard to get my friends from New York to come up, hard to get people to visit. Somehow, when this whole thing went down, everybody showed up, and so I have 30 people on lockdown with me here for 48 days. We are we're close quarters. So if one of us had it, we all have it. And I think we're starting to get on each other's nerves. My wife's certainly losing her mind. Kids are healthy. Kids are on day 48 of climbing the mountain, which I could try to show you. If you guys, Marc, do you want me to show them the mountain?
Yeah, please. Let's see the farm.
So take a look at this mountain, Gary.
I'm excited.
You guys see that out there or no?
Flip it up a little. Go up a little.
Yeah.
There we go. Now we do.
Oh, right on.
So your kids are lost in that mountain?
They're lost on that mountain right now. And
Good.
yeah, and so we're living the farm life with 30 people on lockdown here. And Gary, you're obviously super sophisticated. You are the gold standard when it comes to digital. I think I was the gold standard when it comes to analog. We built courses all over the world, 45 countries, mountainsides. When this thing happened, I could have definitely used you and your 800-person team. But what ended up happening was our community took over. Literally, they took over. They took over our Zoom channels, started creating morning workouts. They sent us app builders. They're working on an app that's going to come out in 2 weeks. One guy called me and said, I've got $5 million in life savings. I want to put it into the company to make sure you guys are it's unbelievable what happened from the community standpoint. I want to say I'm a good leader, but if the community had depended on me, we might be dead. But they took over. So awesome to see that happen.
That's fantastic, Joe, because you
Awesome.
run like 5,000 races around the world, and I assume every single one of those has come to a stop.
Everyone, we got a little glimmer of hope in Taiwan. Taiwan has handled the situation very well. So Taiwan, Hungary is looking good. Believe it or not, don't tell anybody, Texas is looking really good. So we've planned from day one. We said July 1 was we thought July 1. Yeah, that was our target. Gary, you'd know better than me, but I mean, Disney's supposed to open May 17th, I'm hearing, at 50% capacity. If Disney opens, why the fuck can't we have Spartan races? So
Wow.
Mm.
And Joe, I've sat in on a couple of your warrior calls. You do at 5:30 every morning. Can you just maybe tell us a little bit about why you're doing those calls and what happens on them?
Yeah, you know what happened, guys, was I was in Sparta, Greece, okay, when this whole thing went down, when it became real, when Trump closed the border. And I wasn't buying it. I'm a super optimist. I don't know how you were feeling, Gary, but I was like, no big deal in China, no big deal in Japan, no big deal in Italy. It's only 3 markets. We still have 42 open. This thing's going to blow right over. I'm sitting in Sparta, Greece, away from my family, working on some stuff, and Trump closes the border. And so now I'm in a race to get to Athens, to get to Heathrow, to get back to Boston. And I'm stuck for like 15 hours in that travel. And my mind just said, oh my God, you know what? The standards don't change. I'm going to put together a tight schedule. We're starting a warrior call every morning with all our really crazy, I say that with love, partners around the world and community. Committed. Great word. Our committed folks. And so every morning at 5:30, chairman of Saks Fifth Avenue, lawyers, finance, the ones that wake up at 5. And scientists, doctors. And so we get the news about a week before everybody else does. And what it did was it forces you to get up at 4 a.m, right? Because I got to be prepared. I got to look good on this warrior call every single day, 48 days in a row. The whole team gets on, and we got a little bit of normalcy in a very chaotic world, if that makes sense.
Love that.
Yeah. Hey, so you guys, for all the people out there in the audience, a couple of things. First, if you can just get on the chat and say hello to us and tell us where you are in the world and maybe what you're up to. We're going to have Q&A, and so I'm going to tee that up in a couple of minutes. And I just want you to put your hands up, and we're going to ask you if you've got a question. We're going to put you into the panelists. So we're going to ask you to unmute, put your video on, and we'll get to see you. And you get to ask one of these 2 guys or both these guys, those probing questions. So Joe and Gary, you may not know that here in Singapore, it's May 1st. It's Labor Day. It's a big holiday. Traditionally, it's a celebration. I think really of kind of a harmony or unity of people coming together to work together to make the country a better place. To work towards the betterment of our fellow humans. And it's kind of befitting to have you guys here because we're at a time when we're all reflecting on, I suppose, how we're going to bounce back, and what the future is going to look like. So, I know things in the States are looking pretty dire. You've got 30 million people out of work. Similarly here, we've got, thousands and thousands of people out of work. We've got businesses that are going to close for sure. But we're going to rally to come back together. And what I'm looking for you two guys to share with us is really, what do you think it takes to not lose hope? Like, how do you get your shit together and stay focused and stay positive for your employees, for your children, for your spouse, you know, for your community? What is that thing that it takes right now?
I think for me, it's actually a very simple game of what's the alternative. You know, life's about choice. You know, I've had an ungodly amount of conversations, and some people very close to me who are not like Joe and I, who don't understand any other framework besides optimism as a starting point. And then you layer practicality on top of it. It's yes culture. It's not no culture. But, you know, you get into these conversations and it's less about the rah-rah or the motivation. You just get into a one-on-one and, you know, my friend Don, like, I'm like, okay, so what's the alternative? Like, are you just going to go into a hut and, you know, bury your head? Are you moving to Sweden? Like, you know, this impossible situation that you've decided to paint in your head that we're now in because your restaurateur business is in big trouble and you've done all the things that we've talked about not doing, overextended yourself, spent all your money on mansions and cars and vacations and haven't saved. I'm like, look, it sucks, but life has consequences and you've played your hand a certain way. And sometimes the guy or gal who gets, you know, 2 bullets in their hand in a game of poker loses because of the way the cards played out. And your starting point was great. And so to me, it's actually liberating. It's actually not sad or suffocating. It's actually exciting. You know, what is the alternative? Like, you know, let's first take a couple of things into perspective. One, you know, yes, there's a lot of people out of jobs. Yes, there's a lot of businesses hurt. There's also an ungodly amount of people being hired to do new tasks and a lot of new businesses that are going to grow. This has just always been the reality of adversity, right? Number two, you know, somebody was talking to me the other day and they're like, so many people dying. I'm like, it is devastating. I'm like, but just to remind you, and this was literally the truth with this individual, I'm like, Kobe Bryant's your favorite human of all time, let alone athlete. Had Corona started 60 days earlier, Kobe would be alive and potentially alive for another 40, 50, 60 years because of it. So think about all the people that lives have been saved because they would have been in a car accident had the world been normal. And so to me, it's about alternatives. It's just about perspective. It really is. It's about having a calm, collective conversation, which is you can sell your home if you're overextended and don't have a job. You could move out of your apartment that you're paying rent for $4,000 a month and go get one at $1,800. I think it's a game of humility, actually, Mark. I think humility is wildly underappreciated and not put on a pedestal. We're in a very kind of like cultural show me world. So to me, it's just a calm, very practical conversation and mainly grounded in thank God you're alive, which gives you an at bat. And guess what? Sometimes it's 1 step backwards, 4 steps forward. Joe?
Nice.
Yeah, no, I agree 100% with that. I had I mean, obviously, you know, our whole mantra is we've been training for this. This is what we trained for, right? Everybody thought we were crazy people. Crawl under barbed wire, get out in the cold, take cold showers, run 20 miles, right? But you, Marc, when you came out with me and we did that race in Indonesia, where'd we go together?
Yeah.
Indonesia, right? Like, I'm sure you looked at me and said, what the fuck is this guy making me do?
Well, I started to say that very early on when I met you, Joe.
But the point is, shit happens. I didn't know a pandemic was coming. I don't think Gary knew a pandemic was coming, but shit happens. And so if you train for it, we practice piano, we practice math, we practice finance. Why don't we practice adversity? Because we're all going to face it, right? And so this is what we train for, but that doesn't necessarily solve the issue of somebody losing hope and throwing their arms up and going through a tough time. And so what I would say is it's perspective, like you said, Gary, which is changing your frame of reference. When I was very young, I had 2 Polish kids work with me who came from communist Poland. And obviously, Gary, with your connection to Russia, right, you get this. And these, I couldn't outwork these guys. They didn't want vacations they never talked about. They just wanted more hours. Food didn't matter. They just wanted more hours. And so pandemic, getting the ability to stay in your house with Netflix, even if you can't pay the rent, or like, like no big deal. Like I'm not getting beaten. I don't got to sleep in the rain. So I don't want to be harsh about it. I know people are going through some really hard times. I don't want to make light of it, but like, my God, if you need some perspective, go on Netflix and watch some of the World War II footage or World War I footage. I mean,
I agree.
the
I agree.
alternative? Oh
I
my
agree
God.
with this. I think
Yeah.
why I think we are audacious. Why are we the humans that aren't supposed to go through anything? It's funny. I was a terrible student, but the one class I was really strong at was history, and I use it a lot for pattern recognition and human behavior for business. And a lot of my career has been based on it. In hindsight, I never really understood why I liked it, but I definitely, to me, it's just like, what about the Black Plague? What about the Holocaust? What about the Vietnam War? And then you get into micro things. I keep going to this, things happen every single day that are unfortunate. They really do. And I think everyone goes into like, look at all the bad. And I'm like, man, look at all the good, including the simple. I mean, do you know how many people are spending more time with their children, their spouse, Zoom happy hours with their best friends from, people didn't get it. We didn't have the grasp of the modern technology. The amount of people that are doing happy hours on Zoom like this with their best friends in the world, who they used to wait to see once a year for a weekend or meet up at a Spartan Race or meet up at a college reunion, or, now they're like, wait a minute, we can do this. You have friends, 4 different groups of friends who adored each other through college, grad school, early jobs, childhood, who are like, wait a minute, why don't we just do this every 2 weeks? I mean, deep friendships. One guy was telling me about his mom from Colombia, who is 90 years old, and him and his children, their grandmother, realized, wait a minute, we don't need to call grandma once every 3 weeks. We can Zoom and FaceTime with grandma every day. I mean, there's so much happiness and love and good that is going to come from this, including people whose businesses went out of business, who are going to be able to regroup and start a business that is going to be better, that they're going to enjoy more. I mean, adversity is such an opportunity.
Nice. I love that. I've just been reading Phil Knight's autobiography, the story of Nike, Shoe Dog. And for any of you out there who haven't read it, it's a phenomenal book. But what really surprised me and amazed me about his story is how many times the whole thing came so close to just not happening. Exactly. It's just a sliver, and the number of times that he must have looked at himself and his partners and said, this is it, we're done. And I think you guys both found a journey to entrepreneurialism, and we can talk about that word that I hate so much and misspell so much, but the fact is that you two have found yourselves in work situations that I'm imagining neither of you call work, right? And maybe the question I'll start with Joe is to sort of say, millions of people are going to start over, and they're going to start businesses, and they're going to look at themselves and say, what is it about me that what business should I be starting? I've come out of an insurance brokerage firm, and fuck that. From now on, I just want to focus on something that I really love. How am I going to figure out what that is? Joe, how did you get to Spartan? And by the way, if you can tell the world a little bit about the death race, I'm dying for you to talk a little bit about that, because you're well known worldwide for Spartan, but not enough people know just exactly how insane you are. And maybe tell people what that is. Go for it, Joe.
Look, I would imagine most people watching this, and certainly you, Marc, and Gary, and myself, it doesn't matter what business we start. It doesn't matter what job we took. I'm passionate about it. Cleaning toilets, I get passionate about. It doesn't matter. I just want to do a good job. Right, Gary? Like, I think we're all the same.
100,000%.
But not everybody has that gift. And so they have to find that thing they just love. And certainly Spartan is more exciting than my previous job and the job before that, or the business I had. But I think the way you find it is you got to ask yourself, what would I do if I knew I was going to fail? Like a lot of people say, what would I do if it was my last day on earth? What would I do if I had all the money in the world? But the question I love is, what would I do if I knew I was going to fail? In other words, if you were a terrible MMA fighter, but every single day you went into the gym and got your ass kicked, you probably love that, right? If you're terrible at the piano, but you can't stop sitting at the piano, you probably love that. For Spartan, I lost money for 15 years. I was terrible at it. I couldn't get it to work. I had to keep going in my pocket. I mean, it was irresponsible. If my wife knew the money we were lighting on fire building Spartan, she would have killed me. But clearly this was my thing. So for those out there, you know, you make a list. What are the things you love? What are the things you hate? And hopefully you start to hone in and find that thing that you're just passionate about, that you would do even if you got punched in the face doing it every single day.
I love that.
Right?
And by the way, I apologize for interrupting, but you're firing me up back to getting excited. You know, Joe goes big, you know, he's got that kind of like energy. And so, and I don't have the context of why he was able to lose money for 15 years. It's probably because of some good thing, whether he did or whatever circumstance. But to his point, if we make success in our world happiness, and somebody realizes that if they make $49,000 a year playing a piano, because they can only get $15 gigs, or, you know, or $29K a year getting their face beaten as an M&A fighter in the junior ranks because they can't get into, they're not good, they're not moving up, but they figure out how to live a lifestyle that 49 or 29 or 99 pays for, and they realize the happiness, not the BMW, not the stature, not the $10,000 vacation, not the spa treatments, that the happiness is the North Star. I don't believe that humans are very good to going back to normal. So I think the world in 2 years has a lot of changes and has a ton more that are not changed. But my great hope would be that people could, you know, through something like this, reframe their happiness circle. When I hear Joe talk about that, I couldn't agree more. There's no other word, and I hate to use it because it allows people who like excuses to use them, but I got lucky that my deep passion was to work and do businesses. You know, like as a kid, when it snowed, I was more excited to go shovel driveways. This is just real, than build snowmen and you know, and sleigh ride. And that's not because I read a Tim Ferriss or Gary Vee book. You know, that's because it was naturally in my chemicals. And so, you know, other people have different natural things, whether they would be in the garden for 12 hours a day. My question is, make TikToks and a podcast and away you go. Like, you know, and so it's just an incredible time with the internet. And I when I hear Joe talk about that, it inspires me so much. I just really wish people went completely all in into what they like. It really works. It may not be destined to be $1 million a year thing, but if you are then smart on what you spend your money on, you can have a sustained happy life.
Joe, yeah. I was listening to one of your podcasts, and you had a Sena on there who won last year's death race. And what amazed me about the backstory is that she was kind of like smoking, chilling on the couch, you know, not knowing what her potential was, and somehow, you know, something that you did got her off the couch and got her to do one Spartan race. And the next thing you know, she is the all-time winner, like beating the guys in the 2019 death race. How does, you know, that's the thing that I think both of you give to people, is this ability to take that first step and make that go, and then just keep learning what's going to happen, like keep finding things on the way, and then you'll get there, right? So yeah, Joe, if you know thousands of people who have those stories.
A couple of things. One is I think Gary does what I do. He does it, you know, in the digital world. He nudges people. He knows exactly the sentence to say at the exact right time that gets somebody to just rip off their suit and go attack some new business in the digital world. And I have that knack. I got it from my dad to get John, who's standing next to me here, who's a digital guy. Never worked out in his life. I got him riding a mountain bike up the mountain every day, right? He was doing pull-ups this morning with a weight vest on. He doesn't even know what a weight vest is. And so somehow we have that knack to nudge people. Athena, great example, smoking cigarettes on the couch, probably 20-something years old at the time, not feeling great, finds out about Spartan, piques a little bit of interest, and then we nudge her, just like we nudge everybody. And we put this audacious, crazy goal, the death race. 70 right?
I love it.
Great name. By the way, Hearst, who invested, I'm going to get in trouble for saying this, who invested in us, said, we'll invest, but you got to get rid of this thing called the death race. We can't be associated with it.
Is that why it's
and knowing, did you have to change it, Joe, or did you double down and now it's called the super death race?
No, they're pretty cool. I say, guys, I I can't do that. I mean, it's just such a
Yeah.
great name. Like you're a genius at this stuff, and your instinct right away was you got to keep
Are
that
you
name.
kidding me? It's the single best thing I've heard in weeks. Like the death race is like, you need to go crazy with that. Like that's exactly right.
Yeah. So just to give you an idea, Gary, of what this thing is, I said to myself, and being an entrepreneur is like a death race. Everything that can go wrong goes wrong. You got your factory finally stood up. You polished your last piece of equipment in the factory. The building burns down. You got this new employee you've been training for 5 years. They leave for a competitor, right? Like everything that can go wrong goes wrong in business. And so I said, let's create 72 hours of hell. Something that would be like climbing Mount Everest, but for people that don't have 2 months to go to the Himalayas. And so an example of a task I might hit you with in the death race is we're going to crawl under barbed wire, but for 26.2 miles. We're going to do a marathon under barbed wire, right? How's that? We're going to carry your body weight, 50 miles. I'm going to put you in ice cold water until you're hypothermic and you can't see straight. You're going to walk barefoot, right? We're taking your shoes. You name it. 3,000 burpees at the top of the mountain at hour 48. I want you to do 3,000 burpees or you can't continue. So start a fire. Start a fire. You got nothing, no equipment, nothing. Start a fire. Fucking figure it out. So I wanted to take people to a place where they say, just like you said early on, Gary, where they say, oh my God, I'm capable of so much more than I thought I was. I can figure this out. There's a pandemic. My restaurant business is in trouble. I might lose my BMW, but I can figure this out.
100%.
Right?
Resilience. When Joe brought up the two Polish guys, like it makes so much sense to me. Like I just didn't go on vacation, not in my childhood, not in my, until I was 30 something. Like it didn't even like run through my mind. Saturday, because the liquor store was a retail store. Saturday, between baseball card shows, which was the big first business of my life as a 13-year-old, and then the liquor store being in retail, like, restaurant, it's funny, restaurants are being talked about so much. I have so much respect for people in that business, just the sheer hours, the low margins. Talk about a business that sucks. Like there's nothing good about but like, it was just it was foreign to me that people, I remember when I first started to take Saturday off because, I met my wife and I was going to start like leaning into a little bit of my personal life. And it was weird. The first 6, something that's so normal and something that I remember as a kid, I remembered Saturdays, but when, all of a sudden you you get reframed into, a whole new world. When I started 6 years ago, when I started to get healthier and work out every day and eat better, the thought of eating breakfast and lunch was super foreign. Like it just like, it was so ingrained to me for 15 years because of the store and how I like worked. Like I don't eat breakfast and lunch. Like I just went crazy and ate ungodly bad at dinner to like get through, but like, and then you can just reframe. I'm shocked by people not realizing how quickly they can get into a new norm. That's actually the biggest thing about this. We've been forced into, much like, the guy saw the comments and same for me. I'm like 26 hours, like 3,000 burpees, like 9 sound not exciting. Like, you start hearing these things, but the same thing. People are completely scared of technology. Like you're a 74-year-old sitting in a place where you're not with your kids who you love the most. And you so fear going on FaceTime or downloading a Zoom app on your computer that you'd rather not do it than see your children that you cry about not seeing every day. And it's literally, and it's just breaking these perceptions. And I think sometimes, the world puts you in that spot. And that's clearly where we are now. And it's funny, back to mixing the two genres here, people are gaining muscles during this time. I myself I'm getting a lot done on that front. And I've seen a lot of my friends really, like people are just putting in the work right now. A lot of people are gaining a lot of weight and have gone the other way, but there's so much opportunity out there. And I just hope for the couple hundred people that are watching this right now, please recognize life is actually completely binary. You are 100% in control. If you're, I always say you find what you're looking for. If you want to find happiness and good and light, it's there every day. And if you want to find dark and pessimism and negativity, you can find that in 4 seconds too.
So it's a choice right from the start, eh? Just one simple choice.
But I think But I think that's easy. One last point. I think that's easy to say. I think a lot of people were brought up by negative parents. A lot of people were given DNA that whether they had a learning disability or something else happened that made them insecure. And so they've gotten into the practice of no, half glass full, negativity, fear. It's fear. They worry about judgment. They're insecure. So it's easy to say like, hey, flip the switch. I'm saying recognize that it's true, which then becomes a nice seed to saying maybe, and maybe becomes, yeah, it's what Joe does, right? I'm sure that gal, you know, it was a seed. And then one, you know, like, you know, Marc, with Joe, it's like once he becomes aware that you've even glanced, it's white on rice, right? And it's suffocating. And it's coming out of, I think what makes Joe and I successful in the way that you framed up this talk is I think it's coming from a really nice place. I don't know what to say. It's so obvious to me that it comes, at least when I analyze from afar and when I cross paths with Joe, I think it's coming from a good place. I think I understand him. He gets a high from watching couch cigarettes to winning the death race. And I get a high from somebody who is like scared of their boss and their corporate job to 2 years later selling t-shirts on Shopify and happy. And, you know, there's a high that comes along with it.
Well, to ram that point home, I was listening to one of your call-in podcasts, Gary, and a guy with a saxophone was calling in and sort of wondering how to develop himself. And you were like, get yourself on TikTok, spend 8 to 10 hours on there, and instead of getting $300 for a bar mitzvah, you're going to be getting $5,000 for a bar mitzvah. And I fucking love that. Joe, sorry, you were going to say something.
I was going to, a couple of things. One is, hey, Gary, Marc, let's back up and let's go back 18 months. So 18 months ago, hypothetically, we are on this call, and I suggest that I've spoken to all the leaders of the world, and we're going to shut down the world for March and April 2020. And, you know, there's going to be 300 million people out of work, but there's going to be some good unemployment benefits. We're going to spend some time at home. People get used to using Zoom. We're just going to take a break, a pause. We would have been high-fiving. The whole world would have high-fived. That's awesome. But instead, right, because there's a little uncertainty, we weren't planning for it, we lose our minds. But there's no reason to lose. This is an unbelievable time, no matter what the consequence. The other thing I wanted to say was, going back to Athena 1 second, the death race finishers, which is about 10 or 15%,
Wait, Joe, just before you say that, it's no one wins this race. You survive it. You survive it, right?
There's no winner. Although, you know, the person that some years is a winner. Basically, I make the rules change. Whatever I say goes. But they go crazy for the skulls. So this last year, I decided at the finish there were about, let's call it 12 people left out of 300 still standing. They couldn't even speak. They were broken. And I said to my wife, go grab a shotgun. We're here on the farm. And I'm going to start throwing these skulls. This is like gold, Gary. If they get skulled, they call it, their whole life.
That's the apex.
They will kill themselves to get this plastic $13 skull from CBS.
Yep.
So I said, honey, I'm going to throw the skulls in the air like skeet. You shoot them with a shotgun. And we're just gonna be blowing these things up until they finish the task, and however many are left. The first one goes up. Athena, the young girl that Marc referenced, runs, tackles this, almost gets shot, okay? But she wanted this thing so bad, she became the winner. So I think, Gary, when you talk about like getting after it and what people need to do, right? And this, like, not that I want you to get shot.
No, of course not.
Right, but it's that kind of attitude.
It's genuinely understanding the actual game that's being played. I think the biggest thing, you know, one thing I've said a bunch that has surprised me on how effective it's been to helping people. I try to challenge people to pay attention to who listens to them when they complain. You know, who's actually listening? Besides the 1 to 2 people who love you the most and over coddle you, like a mom or a partner, the only other people that actually sustain listening to you, like more than 1 or 2 times, are other people that are losing. And it's been really interesting. Like that ultimately, some of this comes down to who's gonna, everyone's crying too. People are like, Gary, but you don't get it. I'm like, okay, how about this person who's mentally ill and sitting in a car right now? It's like, unless you're the person out of the 7 point whatever billion people on earth that is in last place, literally last place, once you put that into perspective, I always ask my friends, I'm like, what do you think you rank? I actually brought this up to another friend the other day. I'm like, where do you think he's just going on this tirade for 15 minutes? Successful dude, like in a really good situation, but super scared because now it's not as ridiculously fluff. I go, can I ask you a question? Where do you think you rank in the world? And he's like, what do you mean? I'm like, where do you think your life, net score, forget about money, happiness, opportunity, like luck of like the draw of like people being healthy that you love, where do you think you rank? And it was a really interesting thing. Like I'm thinking right now, I'm looking at all the people in the chat, like Jenny Pan and John Lynn, like where do you rank? Like the fact that you're even watching this stream and have the ability to watch this stream already has you, under 1 billion, already, right off the top. Right. And so I just think people like people walk, I'm a well member with Charity Water. People walk 18 miles for clean water. Like this is happening every day. This is not like World War II. This is right now. Just like Joe's like, no, the kids are up in the hill right now. Somebody's walking on mile 9 with a bucket on her head, by the way, normally her on her head, to fill up, to get some clean water and walk back. I mean, people have lost complete and utter perspective.
Gary, I had, sorry, Marc, I got to jump in. I had a guy on a Zoom podcast the other day. I refused to do Zoom podcasts, by the way, though, until the pandemic. And so now I'm becoming comfortable with them, to your point. Anyway, I had this guy on. He went to jail at 16 years old. You're going to love this. Falsely accused. Gets the Innocence Project involved. 28 years later, after doing many, many, many months in solitary confinement where he was eating toilet paper with toothpaste in the middle because they weren't giving him food for 8 or 9 days in a row, right? Okay. 28 years later, they finally say, okay, we're going to let you go, but we're not going to expunge your record. He says, fuck it, put me back in then.
Love him.
He goes in for another 2 years, 30 years, he comes out. Just started his tattoo business, gets out. Just started it. Pandemic hits. So like, if you're having a tough day, put yourself in that guy's shoes.
I love that, Joe. Like somebody in the comments says, amen, Gary, fucking love this. We are losing our minds in our first world problems. It's true. Like, I don't know what else to say. Like my
let's do that. Let's open up to a couple of questions if you don't mind, Gary and Joe.
Please.
So we're going to, who do you want to bring in? Put your hands up. So we'll just, we'll get a list here going of people, put your hands up. I know we got a lot of questions in the chat.
I want to say, Gary, you got me in trouble.
Andrew Roth.
What happened?
Can we get Andrew on the call?
Hold on, Joe got in trouble. That excites me. Go ahead, Joe.
Texted by Hearst.
That's great.
Finished.
All right, Andrew, are you there?
Are you bringing them in?
Yeah, we're going to bring them in.
That.
Andrew, you're live.
Andrew, you're on mute. Can
you unmute yourself?
Yes.
Okay. Sorry, we're just finishing up dinner here. Gary, nice to see you. I met you at South by Southwest a few years ago.
It's a real pleasure. Good to see you again, Andrew.
Great one. Okay, so quick question. So we've been talking about having a different perspective, gratitude, and all that. But I'm just kind of curious as you're talking, like what are two or three things you're going to do differently, whether it be your own.
I have real stuff, and I'll let Joe jump in right after. I've got mine right away because I've been thinking about this constantly. There are no scenarios that I go to Chicago or San Francisco or Dallas for the day for an important meeting ever again. None. Zero. Here's why though. It's not because like it's cool or it's the new norm or all these silly things. It's that Joe and I are similar. Like when Joe and I first met, we were in this little like conference room I had when we filmed our thing. Like I like the touchy feely stuff. Like I need the hug. I need the daps. I need to see you. I need to get the little subtleties. I can't do conference calls. video technology has moved up so much in the last 5 to 7 years. Like the fact that you're shaking your head now and that's in real time, even the lag throws me off because everything has got to be in its system. I'm even getting I'm literally, I don't know if you guys can see this, getting goosebumps from this. Like every little nuance is me. That's how I read. That's how I live. That's how I breathe. And the fact that video can now do that eliminates my need to have to do that in person. And because I've got a lot of that old school in person in me. And so that's number one. Number two, kids things. I used to stress that like if my daughter had a basketball game, that I'd have to time it perfectly, wrap up my, these things are in the middle of the day when I'm in my game. So if it's a 3:30 tip off and I'm at my office at 2:45 and I know, New York has congestion and all that, I'd have to but I'm busy. So I have to like sneak it in and then run out and then one person grabs me and now I'm stressed the whole way. Now I can leave 2 hours earlier than that, go to the apartment, do my meetings like this and easily go in. I could do it on my phone at the Starbucks right next to the school that they're playing at that day. So the other big change is I'm going to be able to do virtual things in places that allow me to not miss anything that matters to family. And then third, I'm going to be able to travel in a way that doesn't rush me back to New York. I'm an extreme traveler, right? Like it's like fly to, let's talk about Asia. I'd go to Singapore, land, do a day, and then go back more in the air than not. Now, without the need to come back for Tuesday or Wednesday or Thursday for business things or that nature, or even family things, I might be able to stay an extra day and not wear and tear on my body and things of that nature. Not like the thought of taking a red eye now is zero, no chance, never. Why would I put myself through that? There is no meeting back in New York or somewhere else that's so important in that more outside of a family thing. There's no reason for that. And so I think a huge cut down on travel or wasted time in transition to do the human thing and leveraging technology to scratch that itch. It's a big deal for me.
Cool.
Boundaries.
Joe, do you want to add to that?
I'm on the same page. I'm exactly like you, Gary. I would fly across the world 24 hours and be back. And I'm really questioning myself. Why did I have to do that? I don't even understand.
I know why you had to do it. It's because you and I are similar. Like you need that human part, but we're getting it right this second because it's really advanced. And Andrew, it's not about boundaries because they were in place. It was that it was beating me up to deliver on my boundaries. I wasn't missing things. It's just that I was destroying myself to make sure that my boundaries were upheld. It's just, I like that I don't have to be as anxious to wrap up they're important meetings too. Like Joe would come, let's just use him as he would come to do a podcast. He went out of his way. Like it's an important moment. And all of a sudden we're riffing and on the back of my mind, I'm like, I got to get out of here because my daughter's got a recital. And all of a sudden it goes 6 minutes late because you get into a good one. And now when you're a Superman or a Superwoman, you always think you can pull it off. So I'm like, let me finish this great thought with Joe. Then I'm going to run fast to the car. Then we're going to get lucky and run a red light or two in the city and I'll be there right on time. And inevitably 50% of the time you're 6 minutes late. And that anxiety is not needed because now what would happen is Joe would have been 2 hours earlier, on the schedule. And the meetings I had that could have been done virtual, I would have at the Starbucks literally across the street from the school on my phone now. And I couldn't do that because Joe and I have the same thing. We need that human part. And by the way, you're getting more human part. Andrew, you and I meeting at South by, that was a human part, but your little guy in the background right now and that photo behind you, there's more humanity.
Right.
There's more humanity in this format.
My wife said to me last night, we've been married 17 years. She said to me, this is the longest stretch. These 48 days, this is the longest stretch you've been home in 17 years. So
she hasn't killed you yet.
I actually think she did. I think this is a fake, robotic Joe. I think he's done.
Hologram.
All right. Andrew, thanks a lot for the question. We're going to go to Neil. Can we get Neil in here? Neil's always asking tough questions, so I'm hoping he's going to be in a good mood and be nice to everybody.
Tough
Thanks,
questions
Andrew.
usually come from
Thank
a good
you.
place. Thanks, Andrew.
Neil, do you want to unmute yourself?
Yeah, I can. I didn't expect you to call on me, so say hi to Charlie. Say hi, Charlie.
Hey, Charlie.
So, okay, yeah, I'm going to ask a slightly different one. So I noticed yesterday that WPP and Barclays have said that they're going to be working their office people from home for the foreseeable future, which slightly more cynical among us might see as a great cost saving for big companies. What do you think big companies should give back in exchange for employees taking over the burden of real estate?
I think that's a great question. Marc, where'd you find this guy? I like this guy. That's a tremendous question.
Yeah, he's awesome. Neil is fantastic.
Neil, I think that's a really interesting question. I've actually been thinking about that a lot. You know, it depends on where you sit on altruism and capitalism and intent. You know, one would argue that that will naturally happen. You know, big companies get big by investing. Other times they get big by cheating, to your point. It all depends on the margins. I think the question will become, will that trickle down? To your point, definitely not in the short term. Neil, the way you asked that question is very insightful. There's a lot of companies that are going to get their P&Ls dramatically healthier during this time, and real estate being one of them. I also think you're smart enough, if you ask that kind of depth of a question, to know they're not going to reap those benefits in 2 seconds. You know, they're obviously going to negotiate with their landlords, but a lot of them are not, you know, for example, I'm looking at all those variables. When I hit Related, who runs our buildings, we're not getting a discount on our space anytime over the next 6 years with our lease. So I think the question becomes, A, if they get the actual financial benefit with their renegotiation with their landlord. And I think at some scale, when you look at those companies, because I'm a tiny business, those are big companies, they may have the leverage to be able to do that. B, I think the responsibility is a really interesting question, because the reality is my hope is that it gives a lot of employees the option, because the other question, Neil, is I have 900 employees right now remote, and I come from the old country where, like, you know, my dad embedded in my head, like, these people are not going to be working. And obviously my DNA is the reverse, because I'm very optimistic and positive. The question is, the reverse, which is all the employees that are not going to be productive, are they supposed to reap back to the business that they're down 20 to 25% productivity? Or the reverse, Neil, to your point, my biggest concern right now more than anything is I have employees that I think are burning themselves out because they've gotten suffocated into the Zoom culture. And I've got employees who were kind of average before, now burning the midnight oil 17 hours a day. And I'm like, whoa, you got to get back to some sort of normalcy. I think these kind of questions are really, really going to play out. Neil, I'll give you another one that might be even bigger than real estate. What about T&E? I mean, if you look at these companies' travel and expenses, they're going to go to zero this year. And so, like, it's, you know, I think it's a very thoughtful question. I do think it goes a little bit both ways. I think, you know this, Neil, I think a lot of employees will say, hey, keep your financial benefits. If I'm actually allowed to stay home, I'm enjoying this. You have other people who are losing their mind because they're struggling with, like, balancing their kids being around them and their stuff. I keep telling those people, remember, school will go back. And if we work from home, you may love it. So I'm spending a lot of time on this. I think, to answer your question, I think it's going to be case by case. And I think the businesses that most give back to their employees, if that actually happens, are the ones that are going to be benefit, and the ones that long term. And I think the ones that aren't will have a good quarter, will have a good year or two of their EBITDA, but over time will lose leverage to people that are bringing value to those employees.
Nice. Joe, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I got a couple of thoughts. One is I'm friends with some folks with massive real estate holdings that have been talking about this WeWork opportunity, even though WeWork had some financial and balance sheet issues or whatever. And they believe that in this new world, there's going to be this flex space. So maybe a WPP puts in a situation where they build an office space for 4,000 people, but there's 8,000 people that could actually work out of it, because many are home at times, the other, you know, so it's flexible. Because when I look at this barn, right, where we're operating out of, with 30 people here, right, 12 hours, 15 hours a day, I can't imagine, Gary, when I'm listening, I can't imagine if 30 of us weren't on lockdown here working together, and instead we were disparate, and John was in New York and this one was, we wouldn't be getting half the productivity out of the last 48 days. So as much as I don't want to fly to Singapore for a day, which I won't anymore, I agree with you. I think, oh, by the way, the kids are walking back from the mountain. Let's go take a look. Hang on.
All right.
I think, and I got another thought. Hang on one second. You see the two girls? See them or no?
Yep, I see them in the blue. Yep.
Yeah, blue and
Awesome.
red. They're coming down. Here's another thought. I don't think companies in general, and I think history has shown us this, will pocket all that money, those savings from not having real estate, and kind of screw the employees and take care of the shareholders for a long period of time. Because what happens for most people, certainly for you and I, Gary, is I'm going to invest that money. We're going to grow. I'm going to add more countries. I'm going to add new products. And before, right? And so we're going to get bigger. So it's, by the way, it's not a negative for a company to make some money. I mean, I lost money for 15 years. Let me make a little bit of money, right? And you can reinvest it if you're that kind of person, and most companies are.
But you're an entrepreneur, and I think Neil's point is well taken. You look, I can't speak for Barclay. I'm just undereducated, but WPP was built in banking, in CFO, and M&A mentality. And so to your point, you and I, like all I've been, why Neil got me excited is it's such a great, thoughtful question, because I've already been spending a lot of real time on it. I'm like, ooh, if I could get out of my real estate stuff, Neil, like there's some real dollars there, and what can I do with that? I think that and that's why the world becomes a game of haves or have-nots. Like, I think that network televisions and big box retailers are going to be in trouble because they haven't invested in the internet. I think merit and good wins in the end, but I think Neil's question is extremely valid because there's a lot of muckery that sometimes happens between the beginning and the end. Sometimes it's a 13, 14, 18-year period for that all to play out. So I think it's a thoughtful question. I think to Neil's point, if you also have a pulse on the political temperature, the separation of wealth, it's going to lead to some really interesting questions. And I would ask Neil, I'm actually way more worried about what universities are doing than businesses. Businesses get pressured by society and have some people that go on the offense. Universities who make a margin and a half on room and board are starting to already get asked by kids saying at Oxford and Harvard saying, hey, wait a minute, can I get some money back? And so it's going to be a very, very interesting time.
Okay. Hey, thanks, Neil. It's good to see you.
Marc, I apologize. I know we're wrapping up. Just because it was such a great question, just if I can be selfish. Neil, thoughts on your end?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of, so I know WPP very well. I spent most of my career there until I escaped. So they're not going to be giving any money back to anybody but shareholders in the short term, I don't think. But I just think there's a lot talked about behavior change, and you guys know as well as I do, humans don't change. We change really, really slowly. So, which is why I started thinking about how businesses will change and how companies will change, because they change a lot faster. Primarily for fiscal reasons. But yeah, I think you're right.
Or legacy. Neil, I think the reason there is some good in the business world when it shears its head, it's because it's legacy, right? There's a lot of businesses created where people are trying to put something in the history books, and I think that pressure against the people that are trying to drive short-term shareholder value is what makes that whole ecosystem intriguing to watch.
Yeah, and I was talking, I'll go in 10 seconds. I was talking to a mate in New York last night who reminded me that Jay Chiat, the famous ad guy, he did this 25 years ago in Chiat Day in Los Angeles. He got rid of all the desks. Everybody worked remotely, and he did it primarily for rental reasons. So
yeah, that makes sense.
Thanks, Marc. Stay safe.
Okay, thanks, Neil.
Bye,
That's
Neil.
great.
Thank you, Neil.
We're gonna ask Natalie Dow to step up. So say goodbye to you, Neil, and hopefully Natalie is out there. Natalie, if you can.
Nellie W, absolutely. Saving to cover up lost revenue, to not let people go. I mean, everybody's doing a lot of those kind of things with, services and things of that nature. Is a great point. Oh, there's Natalie.
Yeah.
Hey guys.
Hey.
So Joe, I've met you a few times, and Gary, I was actually on one of your podcasts when you were in Singapore a while ago. So
yes,
good to see you both. Now, social has gone insane, obviously, with all of this. And I mean, I think we're all inundated by live videos going up every, half a second. It's crazy. So I guess to you, Gary, first, what have you seen, or who have you seen be most successful and why during this time around social? And, you know, I'm finding even with my own that it's opened up brand new markets that maybe I wouldn't have thought about before. But it's now, you know, how do you think about monetizing those? Because maybe they're more third world countries, but they're all reaching out. So just interested to see.
You actually answered it in the way, in the form of the question. The people that are winning right now are the people that are marketers and building brand. And the people that are losing are salespeople and trying to sell at scale when people are a little bit tighter with their dollars and they're losing brand equity. You know, there was, over the last couple of weeks, my team was looking at something, the amount of people that have, the amount of influencers, personalities that have been associated with the quote unquote, directly, the words now showing their true colors. See, what people struggle with is tone. I think this is where Joe and I really connect, and we brought it up a couple times now. The need to be in person is we need those signals. When you're pushing people like Joe and I are, we're acutely, subconsciously or consciously aware that there are people that you can't push to. You have to be smart of how you push, because if you push one wrong way, it breaks, they run away, and we haven't accomplished what we want. So what a lot of people are missing right now is they're tone deaf. They've gotten scared. And they sit at the top of a pyramid of some level, and they're pushing for sales, and their audience is being turned off and associating them with showing their true colors. You're not trying to help me, because they've had the facade of helping, but really it was just a funnel to get into some sort of sale. So who's getting really hurt are the people that are just buy my ebook, buy my course, sign up now for my subscription. The ones that are winning are quadrupling down on free Zoom, free this, doing things like Joe and I have a lot of things going on. We said yes to Marc for this because we know we can provide value in the context. And what that's leading to is brand, relationship, value, which then can either potentially turn into a monetization event or not. And I think having the stomach, Natalie, if you're helping people in third world countries, but you're also as a businesswoman knowing that you may not be able to monetize them, there's a part of you that needs to think about, and that's okay if you can afford it, because if you can't, I don't want you to go out of business. But, and I think finding that balance, but it's very, very simple. The people that are winning are trying to build brand, and the people that are losing are trying to create sales. And we will have a complete reshuffling of like influencers in every little sector, in the macro of the biggest voices in the world to in every little sector. And it's exciting to watch because it's a merit-based game.
Gary, I've heard you talk about offense and defense, and this is a time for people to be going on offense. You wanted to sort of elaborate a bit on that?
Yeah, I think sustainable offense. Marc, I think you picked up on the nuance. One could argue that trying to sell to everybody in your community is actually defense. You're in a place of fear, and so you're trying to take those dollars in. A place of offense is actually taking the risk of not charging, but going ham and producing content everywhere so that your notoriety goes up, so that over time you amortize out. I mean, you think about Joe's business, like the Spartan brand has continuously gained momentum as a brand, which then funnels into, no matter what kind of force of nature Joe and I are, nothing can outperform a brand. Nobody's forcing you to buy a Nike. Nobody's knocking on your door and saying, do you want to buy this Nike? You're not running ads. Nike's not running ads where everywhere you go, a Nike ad pops up because they're suffocating you to buy. They built a brand, and then you're going to Nike. And so, and that's how I think Spartan's growing from my outside perception, because it's being brought up more often. I want Natalie, if this is where she's going with her question, to do more content with more intent to do nothing but to build the leverage of brand, because over time that will amortize out to far more sales than going in for the right hook, as I call it, to convert that audience a couple of weeks into that relationship. I always tell boys and girls, I'm like, go back to dating life. Like the quicker you go in for the kill, women always get this way better than guys. I'm like, if somebody goes in for the kill right away, that converts less, right? They're like, of course, they're on the receiving end very often of that ridiculous tactic. And so it's romancing and actually building a relationship with the other person. And so it's giving, and then it's having the mental strength to not be disappointed when you go in for the ask. A lot of times I'm comfortable with trying to sell a book or a sneaker or my dad's wine service, and the numbers are always devastating. I'm giving at a level that is at the tippy top of the sphere, And then I'm watching people buy wine from wine.com and not wine text. And even though I've given them ungodly amounts of value, and you have to have the mental strength to be okay with that and not be upset. And most people struggle with the non-close when they think that they deserve the close.
Gary, that's a great handoff for Joe on the romance side, because I know Joe's a deep romantic. Joe, do you want to tackle that?
You know, a whole bunch of stuff was going through my mind. Number one is, thank you for saying that, Gary, because I've been questioning myself, but my instinct right away, and then I'll tell you why it was my instinct, was we're not going to charge. We're just going to push stuff out there. We've got to protect the community. We've got to engage with them. That's the most important thing. And this too shall pass.
Shall pass.
I go deep into my psyche. Why am I pushing that, right? Because my CFO, like every CFO out there should, is pushing. We got to monetize stuff. We got to protect our liquidity. And so I remember a moment in I don't know, 2001 on Wall Street, where many firms were shrinking. Right, we had that bubble burst, that internet bubble, and all of a sudden firms were shrinking. And this really guy had, been through the war on Wall Street for a long time. He said, look, most firms, 99% of firms retract in times like this. He goes, I spend. He says, I go out and I bring people. He goes, that's when I win customers. So I had that in my head. But the other one, you're going to love this, Gary, is when I was pre-teens, my first business was cleaning swimming pools. My first customer was the head of the Banana organized crime family. Okay.
Jesus.
So he taught me 3 lessons you are going to love that have stuck with me forever. And so we got to go back, 38 years for this one, which is probably playing out for Spartan here, which is, hey, Joe, if you say you're going to be here at 8 a.m., be here at 7:45 on time is late. Number 2, if you're cleaning the pool, you better clean up the furniture. You better straighten up the shed. You better go above and beyond and make yourself invaluable. And number 3, never have your hand out asking for money. You provide value first. You provide value first, and then you worry about getting paid. And I guess it just became part of my wiring. And who would expect I learned it from a wise guy?
I would expect it. I would expect it. It's really the fine line between a wise guy and somebody that gets a statue built about them for their, nobleness and good deeds is actually a very thin line. There's some circumstances and there's one DNA trait, but there's a reason that a lot of successful people are, and there's a reason wise guy movies do so well, is there's a lot of stuff in there that really resonates with good people. And so I understand that a lot, Joe.
Hey, Natalie, in the true spirit, do you want to just give a plug on your own business and tell us how we find you?
Yeah, and I think to your point, Gary, I've just been doing a ton of free stuff for the government, for Facebook, for World Health Organization, and it's already paying tenfold, and it's impacting people's lives, which I think is great. So, for me, I'm loving it. So no, everyone can find me. My handle is Rockstar Arms. That's the easiest way to find out stuff about me.
Because you are a rock star. Thanks, Natalie.
Thank you.
Bye,
yeah,
Natalie. Good
to see you. Okay, we're going to go to George Ho, if we can find George. And yeah, such a good question. George, don't forget to unmute yourself as you're coming on here.
I am here.
Hey.
I know, typically, hi, Marc. The last time I saw you was in...
Let's not tell that story.
We'll not tell that
story. Oh, okay. I wasn't sure what you were going to say.
I work for a financial services firm. I actually have 2 questions for you guys. So, my team oversees about 10,000 employees who are essential workers who go to the branch every day. And I think in the situation where people consider essential workers as, healthcare, first responders, it's hard to kind of convince people that they're essential. We're just, handing out, ATMs and this and that. And there's a lot of compassion fatigue that I'm feeling and my team is feeling from just telling people you need to go to work, even though half of the world's on shutdown. 90% of New York City is on shutdown right now. How are you guys dealing with that? And then, my second question is from, there's business and there's personal, right? From business, we're all on the offense right now. We want to grow, we want to draw, we want to, increase revenue, but at the same time, the human portion is so big that every decision I'm making, I'm like stuck in the middle. Do I do the right thing for the employee right now? Am I doing the right thing for my shareholders?
It's so funny you say that. So my dad is struggling with this with the wine business because shipping wine right now is on fire. Liquor stores in New Jersey were deemed essential, so that's funny. But obviously, Jersey's got its own vibe. But the punchline there being, George, we've taken a very good approach there. If the employee does not feel comfortable, stay home. We've gone 100% human, and I think when I say that to you, listen, George, there's no level of business success that is going to put a Band-Aid on you knowing that you forced somebody in a conversation to go to work, they caught the disease, and they got sick. None. Zero.
I agree with you there from the standpoint of we're doing everything right by them, but more so of the compassion fatigue that we're having, right? I think not so much of the what are we doing from a human resource standpoint, but just, I'll use the term energy between that and then between work coming in together. It's a ginormous, almost like a nuclear reactor. And how are you balancing that if you
it's hard to have fatigue when you're feeling like you're doing the right thing. I mean that. Like fatigue comes in really, it's I think of it as two ways. One, if you're executing exactly what you believe in, you don't feel as much anxiety and fatigue. Two, this is what we signed up for. You want the accolades during peacetime, you have to come through during wartime. That's where my brain goes on that question. There's two places. This is what I signed up for, so it's my requirement, quote unquote, no choice. B, the best way to sustain my energy is to make decisions on the humanity side, 51%, 49% on the fiscal responsibility, because you see where I'm going? And to me, that's really helped. Like we've had some people push back. I'm like, stay home, Mazel tov, do your thing. We will figure it out with the 83% of our staff instead of the 100% that we need to do this task. That's maybe even 20% harder than it was before. So that's how I've done it. Joe?
Joe, you there?
So I think back to, yep. Can you guys hear me or no?
We can,
Yeah.
Yep.
I think back to ancient Sparta, Lycurgus, the founder of Sparta, puts these rules in place. We're going to wake up early. We're going to train hard. We're going to take cold showers, right? He literally turned everybody's life upside down. The story goes that one of the citizens flipped out. I'm sure they were all feeling it and went to attack him. And they said, sir, should we kill this person who rebelled? No, have him live with me. And what that person saw was that he was living the life he was asking everybody else to live. So for me at Spartan, just like you're saying, Gary, we're not pushing our people to work 12-hour days or 8-hour days or 5-hour days, but they see me working 20-hour days. I'm on Zoom meetings nonstop. I'm doing multiple online workouts, right? And I think it's just sucking everybody up into that energy vortex, and everybody's getting after it. And I'm looking over at John on my right, who wakes up at 4 and goes to bed over here about 9 or 10, and he's shaking his head yes. So
and I think George, for a lot of us, Joe's example makes sense. They can't see that you're going after it, or they don't get to see it. The osmosis there makes sense. I really genuinely, and I like the way you reacted. I think it's that 51-49 thing, right? Like, if you're able to be in a place where you're happy with your decisions, like as a human, I think you'll find less fatigue. I genuinely do.
No, I completely agree. I think that was the best advice I've ever gotten. 51, like I've been 50-50 since this whole thing started. Now I know where exactly to take my 1% to the humanity side, and I'm okay with, yeah.
And George, again, I love the goosebumps because I know I'm onto something. I'm going to be really transparent with you. I'm an entrepreneur. Like, I'm a capitalist. Like, it's in my entire blood. Like, I don't say that lightly. I'm not an altruist nonprofit executive. Like, I actually mean 51-49. And 49 revs its head with me, like telling some of my executives, I'm like, they're complaining? I'm watching him on social media. He's not even working. He's burnt out. He's not even working. I literally watched an Instagram story of him playing a video game 3 hours ago. He's supposed to be on the clock. Some people are funny. Like, there's plenty of people taking advantage of this situation because they're not inspired. So I'm with you, and I'm glad that resonated. That makes me happy. It is that little tweak.
Thanks,
Perfect.
George.
Thank you.
Great to see you.
Great to
Hey,
see
we're
you.
going to take just two more questions, and then I've got a couple of the questions to end things off with, fellas. So,
Hey, Mark, I don't know if
yeah.
I don't know how my team has articulated my timing, but I'm gonna have to bounce off in about 5 minutes for another thing that I'm going live on TV. So sorry about that.
Have you got 5 minutes? Okay.
I got 5 to 6 minutes.
Okay. I'm going to ask you a question that I kind of got from listening to you, which is in the sort of post-apocalypse, is there a new definition of success, of what is maybe your new or revised definition of success? And if you could add to that, Gary, just on legacy and just, the thing that many of us are striving for. Go for it.
Yeah. So on legacy, Neil, and I didn't know Neil worked at WPP. Like, I'm enjoying the fact that I love legacy more than fiscal short-term goals. And I think that's how I'm disrupting the ad world and the WPPs of the world. And it means that I'm building a better culture for my employees, and it leads to pressure, because a better relationship with my employees leads to people from WPP and others wanting to come and work with us. So I'm very excited about that. And I basically only think that way in business, which has made me a much better person. Thank God. I don't know why, but legacy has been far more interesting to me. My birthday being a national holiday, which listen, everybody's watching. I understand that's an audacious thing, but like, to me, it's like, why not? It's like, Joe, like, why not 36 miles? Like, why not 3,000? Why not? Why not? And so, like, to me, when I say audacious things in my own mind, and now I'm saying them out loud, like, I want my birthday to be a national holiday. That means that I have the aspirations, and then I'm acting on trying to be such a good human from a different angle, like the people that usually get that, presidents, leaders of suppressed communities. Like, I'm coming from an entrepreneurial place and trying to redefine it in a way that has a lot more kindness, a lot more good. Mark, my version of success has been put in bed since I wrote my first book that put me on the map, which was happiness. Being happy, whether you make 42K or 4 billion, is happiness, is success. What happened was I'm so kinetic, and I talk about hard work, hustle so much, that people misinterpreted it, and I needed to redefine it and be more clear about it, because people started thinking and started demonizing hard work. I promise you that hustle and hard work is about to not be demonized, because it's been demonized the last couple of years because things have been good. And now that 45 million people are out of a job, all of a sudden hard work is going to be put back on a pedestal. What's interesting though is I think the clarity of my message is very clear. And I think people, it's back to like hearing what you want to hear. People watch politics and they see two different things. I think that people are starting to hear what I've consistently, what's fun about the internet is all these videos exist. I can point to all of them for the last 5 to 7 years. I think many people will redefine. Yes, I know formally, Neil, I got you on WPP, and I heard you escaped. You're the best. I love Neil. I want to get to know him. Mark, I absolutely think that I think a very good chunk of people will redefine success as being happy, genuinely happy. And I think, I've quadrupled down on the message because I feel a sense of responsibility, because it's in my soul, and I'm a good communicator like Joe is, and I want to talk about it more. And my great hope is that it happens. I also agree with what Neil said, which is 96.3% of people are going to go back to, I love when everyone's like the new norm. I'm like, yes, there'll be some new things, but I think people are naive. I think in 24 months, you'll see a shocking amount back to normal. I think, but I do think there'll be a small subgroup that will get into a much happier place. And I hope this has forced them into that. I do.
Right on. That's fantastic. Hey, Gary, I know you got to go. So
I want to hear one last thing that Joe's. Thank you, but I want to hear one thing that Joe's about, because I like it. So whatever you ask, I'm gonna jump off as soon as I have to. I'm waiting for the message. But
so
Mark, thank you for being on
it.
it.
Jump off whenever you need to. Thanks a lot. Go for it, Joe.
Can you guys hear me? Because I'm getting a little bit of broken up signal on your side.
Yeah,
we can
hear you fine.
All right. So here's what I think back to the 87 stock market crash. Right? Nobody's going to invest in stocks anymore. Stocks took off again. Think about the internet bubble. Nobody's going to invest again. Stocks took off. Trade centers collapsed. We're not moving to cities. Actually, everybody moved into cities. So I'm not worried about some new norm. Oh my God, are they going to go on airplanes anymore? Are they going to go to races anymore? Are they going to go to Disneyland? We are tribal creatures. Gary and I say we're not going to Chicago anymore. We're not flying to Singapore.
And
12
next
months
week I'm
from now,
going to.
I'll probably see you on a plane.
I hope so. It'll be really funny. We'll make a good piece of content.
So we're gonna get normalized pretty quickly here. I got a lot of texts and a lot of messages when the market was collapsing. That canned goods, shotguns, buy oil, buy gold. Market's back. So
Yeah. Okay, cool. We're gonna get one more question.
We're gonna be back to normal.
Thanks, Joe. We're gonna get one more question from that guy. So we're gonna do this. You see, I got my team back here, and you can wave. Okay, and Bo, you're gonna ask the next question, and that's gonna be the last one. So we're gonna get you up here as a panelist. Hold on a second.
Should I go? I'm gonna go to my family. Let me see. Could I go get my family in the kitchen?
Yeah, we want to see the kids, Joe.
Let me see if I can find them.
There you go.
Hold on a second.
All right.
Remember, guys, I don't want to get yelled at. There's 30 people on lockdown with me. This is Alberto right here.
Hi.
Hey. It's Alberto.
Hi.
We got a big team. Oh, look at this.
No.
Look at this.
Oh, hi.
Hey.
So good to see you. Hi.
There you go.
Let me see.
Down here.
That's so funny.
That's
Okay, Bo, go for it. Joe,
Oh, you
can we
remember
get?
this guy?
Hey,
Hey.
look how big you are.
They don't
How
remember.
are you guys? All right. You ready?
Yeah.
Oh, you ready to go?
Yeah.
Okay, go for
All
it.
right. Okay, so like you've mentioned a lot of like key factors that we should all have to becoming like to raise our rank, as you said. So like resilience, passion, and like having flexibility in hard times. But like, what do you think is one key factor? Like if you had to choose one main factor to, as you would say, raise your rank in the world or get where you want to go, what would it be? Keeping in mind the situation that we're all in right now.
Well, hopefully you agree with this one, but resilience, right? Resilience is that ability to bounce back. And so I love this idea. I love this sentence around the only plan we should have is to fail 1,000 times, because that's what life is. It's a whole series of failures that require you to bounce back and hopefully move a few inches forward. And if we aren't prepared to bounce back, if we don't have that resiliency, we're done. When pandemics hit, we're done. I was in a car accident. I was thrown out the window at 85 miles an hour. My leg was ripped out of my hip. I woke up on the side of the road. You bounce back. You bounce back. I've had people at races missing 2 arms and 2 legs.
Wow.
Right? Just the torso. And they come out to the races and people have like, and what? It's just, I don't know if Charlie said, come here, Chewy. Chewy is one of our guests that is living with us for the last 48 days. Chewy, they want to know how important is it to bounce back, to be tough? How important is that?
It's pretty important.
This is one of the top wrestlers in the country at his weight class. Bounces back.
That's awesome.
Cool.
You all set, Bo?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. So, Joe, I want to say a great big thank you for taking the time to join us, and to Gary as well, of course. I want to direct everybody out in the audience there to go and check out Gary V, check out his podcast, check out Joe's podcast. If you're really feeling like you need an injection of inspiration and someone to kick you off the couch, these are the 2 guys to do it to you. Joe, when are you coming back to Singapore? I hope it's going to be within the next year.
I think we're just going to do Zoom calls from now on. I'm kidding. I'll be there. Don't worry. But listen, I gotta say something. We have an unbreakable 24-hour challenge starting Saturday at 3 p.m. and I signed you and your family up. So
all right, we're there. We're there.
It's unbreakable. It's the last man, last woman standing. All right, 24 hours.
Great. We'll be there. Okay. Thank you, Joe. Love to the family. And thanks everyone out there in the audience. I have a big announcement, Joe, if you can hang out or you can go. I just wanted to tell everybody out there that 1880 has been working towards a thought festival, which we call IDK, We're launching it in August. It's the smartest people we can find coming together to solve the biggest problems in the world. It's going to be limited to 200, 250 people. Going to happen over 3 days, and we want Joe to come. Oh, are they the girls? Here we go. Oh my God, they're so big.
No, that's not one of ours. It's a new one that just showed up. Now we're up to 31 now. I just found out.
Damn. Everybody's heading to Joe's farm in Vermont. Okay. Yeah, and Joe, we'd love you to come. So anyway, more information is going to be posted about that in about 2 seconds. And it's May Day. I'm wishing everybody a great dinner tonight and have a great weekend. There you go.
Guys, we're awesome. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Joe. Take care.
Bye.
Is that coming on? All right. That's fantastic. Thank you all. We'll see you next time. Bye for now.